Hey, Paul.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yay.
I'm saying Mariella's in Chile, in Peru, but she sends her best.
She's where?
Peru,
Oh, good. Visiting family?
yeah,
Awesome. Good for her. Yay. Well, please send her our best as well next time you talk to her.
I sure will. There, got a picture. There.
Hey, Emily. Hi, Joel.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Hey, Susan. How are you? And hi, Scott. Hi, Jeremy. Let's see. Hi, Don and Dinesh and Heen and Nathan and Jack and Catherine. Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. Everyone online, we'll get started in just a moment. We are here and there's sound, so don't worry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is totally very hybrid because I can see everybody like here and here. Yeah, you're the farthest out. Yeah, I wish I was over there. Okay. If you ever are struggling with staying awake during meditation, just switch seats with me. You will be wide awake. Okay, so welcome. I think everybody's been here before. Oh, well, welcome. You look very familiar. Okay, well. But has that face been in here before? No. Okay, and you too, it's your first time? Okay, well, welcome. We're in the middle of this module on death and rebirth. And so, have you been to the center before? No, okay. So, I mean, I was drawn to, I'll make this really short. I was drawn to Buddhism because I was looking for something that was going to talk a little bit more about the dying process and death in general, and I found it. Tibetan Buddhism, really, the way that I first found it was by walking through the library and finding the book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And I was just overjoyed. There were like 400 pages about the whole thing, and that they were seeing it, they were describing it as like a launching pad. And that is such a powerful thing when you've had a very negative experience on the other hand. So that's what kind of drew me into it. And we've been talking a lot, some of the previous classes, about how when we use death well in our life as an advisor, it can wake us up to all kinds of things. And we all know stories of people who got a diagnosis that they only had a month to live, and then in that month they were more alive than ever, and they were joyful. And that's what meditating on death can do for us. That's the intent, is to sharpen our lives and our focus and prepare us for that launching pad, since what we've been studying is that the mind is continuous. There's no beginning or end. And so while we spend so much time and attention on, today and tomorrow and yesterday, if we're looking at that larger river, we're also trying to steer that in the highest direction. So that's how we start, by thinking of our intention, thinking of setting our intention, even if it's for today, just for today, starting with that, like thinking, why did I come here? Why am I here? What am I hoping to learn? And if I accomplish that task of becoming a little bit more knowledgeable, calmer about this topic, how much that will benefit me and those around me. And then we can try to expand that intention as much as you're comfortable with. Being aware, one way to do that is to have awareness of this continuity of consciousness. That if it's more than just today and tomorrow and the next day, if this is beginningless and endless, and I have opportunities now to clean up this river, shape it, direct it, then that's my highest intention, is to liberate this river of consciousness so that it is in a completely different state that can benefit all those other beings. And so then with that in mind, I'm going to ask Linda and others to recite the four immeasurables. And so this prayer is kind of a way to boost your intention.
And if you're in the Gampa, this can be found on page 34.
Or right there.
Yeah.
That's so easy.
May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies.
Okay. So now we're going to do just like 5 minutes of meditation to just like shake off Monday. And you can add a visualization to it, which we will build on next time. So as you're counting your breath, and centering yourself and just counting your breath, with each exhale, imagine that your exhale is smoke, that you're sending out either stress from the day, the things that you're worried about, any discomfort, anything that you want to send out, get rid of. You're just imagining that smoke going way out of the whole environment. And then when you're inhaling pure, still clean energy. Just like we know that visualizations have an effect on our body, our mind. So you're inhaling whatever you imagine to be the highest qualities. So if you're imagining pure Buddha nature that you're inhaling, and then exhaling, and do that. I'm going to just let you do that on your own. Check your posture first. Make sure that if you're sitting in a chair, your feet are flat on the floor, your back is aligned so that the vertebrae are like coins stacked on one another. That's the most important part. Have your arms out away from your body so that you don't collapse your breathing. Your chin just tucked a little bit to lengthen your spine. Your tongue at the back of your teeth so to relax your jaw, and your eyes can remain gently open if you want to let in light, keep you alert. And then you're going to put all your awareness on your breath while you do this visualization so that your mind hopefully doesn't wander. Then after about 4 or 5 minutes, I'm going to lead us through the meditation on the advantages of remembering death and the disadvantages of not remembering death. So after about 4 minutes, I'll ring the bell, but just stay in a meditative posture and I'll guide us through that. Okay. So now we're going to meditate on the benefits of meditating on death. So I'll just list them as you try to kind of absorb them. The first benefit of meditating on death is that your actions will become beneficial. Think about, is this true? How will this be true? What makes this true for you? The second benefit is your spiritual practice will become very powerful. And think about how these two things have been true or not true in your life. How have your actions or philosophy, practice towards others changed when someone close to you has died, when you see your own mortality? There's ways to use death without having it be so external, just something we meditate on and use. So then the third benefit is the importance of using it at the beginning of our practice. Could even be the beginning of the day, right? So the beginning of something you're doing to help your actions become beneficial. Sets your intention, it launches you in the right direction. The fourth benefit is the importance of remembering it in the middle of your practice, or in the middle of your day, or the middle of your action. It helps you reset your intention, keep it as strong and clear as you began with. And the fifth benefit is the importance of remembering it at the end of your practice, the end of your day, the conclusion of your action. You are able to keep that intention throughout. And the sixth benefit is you die with a peaceful, happy mind, free of regrets. And then the next part of the meditation is on the disadvantages of not meditating on death. And by meditating, we're just talking about becoming familiar with, calling something up throughout our days. We meditate on so many things throughout the day, not always the right things. So what are the disadvantages of not calling to mind death? If we don't, then we won't remember the Dharma. So what is the Dharma? The Dharma is what frees us from suffering. The Buddha Dharma is the Buddha's teachings, which if followed will free us from suffering. So if we don't meditate on death, we will not remember this. The second disadvantage is even if we remember, we will not practice it. So we might remember, oh yeah, this information, but we won't put it into practice. And then the third disadvantage is even if you practice, even if you remember Dharma and you practice it, you'll not practice it well, with pure intention, with strength and conviction. The fourth disadvantage is your practice will not be persistent. Your motivation, your energy for it will wane, come and go. The fifth disadvantage is you'll create many unwise negative actions. If we're not using death as an advisor, there's lots of ways that our actions are not wise. And the final disadvantage is we'll have many regrets at the time of death as a result. So open your eyes, come back. This is very traditional Tibetan Buddhist meditation of meditating on the advantages and disadvantages of whatever topic it is. It's so easy for us to forget to bring things to awareness. We're going to do another kind of classic meditation. We're having all kinds of interesting conversations, but I also feel like, I really have to cover this material. But before we do that, Lori was going to interview me. A brief little chat, because this way, you can come up here. Yeah, get on the camera. It's fun. Oh. So the very first class, just by coincidence, I brought well, not really by coincidence, but I was working on my advanced healthcare directives. So I had a couple of people here sign it. It was like extra credit. Oh, wait, where are you going? Okay, grab your chair. Oh, yeah, and part of that is the 5 wishes is something that helps people often when you're contemplating your healthcare directives. So Lori brought these to pass out, right? Yeah. Well, you underestimate the power of this class. Can you just can somebody pass these out? I'll get one. Anyway, it's totally a meditation on death to do your advanced healthcare directives. Do you want to grab your chair? Yeah. We just thought, she was asking me some really great questions after class the other day, and I thought, why don't we just chat for a few minutes here in case some of these questions are ones that you all have, or you have answers that I don't. And then we'll get on with the rest of the topic.
So we were talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Hold it really close.
No, it says it's green.
It says green. It's
Well, why are there 2?
it's too confusing when you're
Confusion.
you get nervous when you're on camera.
You do.
All right. So let's talk.
Let's talk, yes.
Yeah.
So you were doing your advanced directive, and
Yeah.
I shared that I had just done mine like a year ago because they had notaries there for it and everything. It was a very challenging thing to do, even though it's not, once you sit down and do it, it's actually not that hard. I don't know why we put it off.
Yeah.
Any ideas why we put it off?
Oh, I know. For me, it wasn't the dying part. It was like, what if it takes 5 years and I'm not able to make my own decisions? I don't want to burden anybody with that. So I found a workaround, which is that there are, guardian ad litem that the state can appoint for your care. So I don't have many family members alive that I would want to be doing this. So I wrote in this directive that that person at that point could definitely have a guardian ad litem appointed who's an attorney, and they could follow these directions.
Yes, because we have two kinds of things that we want to have when we die, I think. We want our medical care, which this addresses, the 5 wishes addresses, but also the things we want to have happen for us spiritually,
Yeah.
which is a little bit different than the 5 wishes. But yeah, apparently there's storms tonight.
Yeah.
So for folks online, if we lose power, because we have a raging storm right now,
Yeah.
we'll pick up next week if we lose power, but hopefully we won't. So
Yeah.
continue on.
I also have, my mother's getting older, and so I want to understand this process and be more comfortable with it to help her through it. She doesn't share my beliefs with everything, and she's very tolerant and listening and talking, but I'm aware that I might, with her situation, I'll probably be facing that and wanting to make that as easy and peaceful for her as possible.
So, I mean, I think, and what we're going to go into in a little bit is the death dissolution process. And so, as I told you all before, I meditate on this death dissolution, and it helped me when my mother was dying to recognize what state she was at. So, I mean, this state could happen rapidly, or in my mother's case, like over 4 days. It just helped me understand where she was at.
You did mention that
Yeah.
in the class last week, that it was 4 days in one state, which was a lot longer than I
Yeah.
thought it would take for something to happen.
Well,
It
that
seems like-
generation of the depression, man, they just knew how to get up and keep on going. So she was tough, even though she only weighed 80 pounds.
And I did find a meditation where I practiced that, going through the steps of meditation, and I always, before, this is a new realization, but before I was, because my breath anchors me a lot, that's going to stop. So what can you hold on to after that stops?
Okay, we're definitely going to be talking about that.
And so one of the things they talked about is refuge. So our practice would build that up in our mind stream, so that we can hold on to that when we.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole word dissolution is kind of a key there. We're not going to be able to hold on to much, but the point of doing the death dissolution meditation is that we recognize this is what's happening. Because just like when you say you're sleeping, and like when I sleep and it's cold, I start forward. So the whole point is to have as calm a mind as possible in life and in death. And if we're not aware of what those sensations might be and what some of the signs are, it might be very frightening. But so it'll more be, I think it's more holding on. I mean, I think there's a lot of places where you can hold on to refuge, hold on to whatever. And then it's more about going through this process. Like when you fall asleep at night, you're not holding on to much, are you? It's very similar. Some of those same stages are happening to us every night when we fall asleep, and we're not super aware of them. Although, when you jump, when you feel like you're falling, there's one that's very similar in the death stages. So at some point you let go and go to sleep, but you try to point your mind in the right direction. There's all kinds of things to do as you're falling asleep to try to relax and set your dreams in the right direction. It's the same kind of thing. And so then if you have confidence in your ability to navigate, I mean, not even navigate, but to go through this, that it's safe, then you can recognize these stages. And then the final one, if you can stay in a meditative state at that final one and join any understanding you have of emptiness with that state, then that's the bomb.
That's the bomb. That's where you get to go back and do it again and again.
Do what again?
The
Oh,
bardo, like you can go back through the bardo,
You
right? Multiple
gosh.
times, like
You really don't want to just keep I mean, so I think what you're thinking of is the bardo. You have a bardo body for 7 days, and then you
Okay.
go through that process, and it happens again until you take a new life.
okay. Is that different than the clear light?
Yes. Okay. We're going to sign some reading. But I think
that's
that'll.
confusing to
yeah.
me because you go through those stages and then you have the clear light is coming
Yeah.
and we usually miss it, I guess, because we're all just out of whack with what's going on around us. We can't see it, right?
It can happen so fast, but if we're, again, calmer and we have some practice with meditation, it's easier to see that and then join that and
Okay.
stay in that kind of meditative
Oh,
state.
so we pass it and move
Yeah,
on.
usually we're
Okay.
like, whoop, now we're somewhere else. It's okay. It's all okay. But yes, there's this opportunity, which I think maybe this is a great segue right into that. Because as you meditate on these different stages, then there's this final moment. And I'm going to try to bring this video next time that tries to visually show it. Then, to stay in that state as long as possible. Meditate. I mean, if you meditate on emptiness, that helps, because that kind of points you in the right direction to what that is.
Okay.
It's very peaceful. It's not like sometimes when we think about emptiness, we get afraid, right? But it's not empty. It's not empty. It's
Shunyata.
yeah.
I figured that word doesn't have any connotations except what we build it to be. So it's
Yeah.
helpful for me instead of
Yeah.
emptiness
Yeah.
because
Yeah. It's full of stuff.
it's full of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, it's not like it's just not. Well, we'll get into that later. That's a whole nother module.
What else was I going to ask you?
Yeah, this is like a pop quiz.
I don't know. I think it seems like I just need to practice and practice it over and over again until it's very familiar.
Yeah. Well, we'll start tonight.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. Yeah. So actually, I'll start talking a little bit right now. So
Steve, can I just let everyone here in the Kadampa at the center know that I have someone on Zoom monitoring the weather and tornadoes for us, and will be contacted immediately. The shelter for tornadoes are the 2 bathrooms, so we'll just split up and, take shelter in the bathrooms if we need to. Hopefully that won't be the case, but on the news earlier, they were talking about the possibility of this storm having tornadoes with
Okay.
it. So,
but there's no tornado watch.
no, not right now.
Okay. All right.
But I do have someone monitoring it for
Okay,
me
wonderful.
on
Thank
Zoom,
you.
so they can let us know immediately.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we don't want like that kind of practice tonight. Death practice, here comes the tornado. Yeah, ideally, we would be laying down and okay. So when this whole term, like I just said, death dissolution, things are dissolving. We're going to get into like, what are those things? But everything that we can think of is made up of parts, which we'll call aggregates. So this class is made up of parts, right? First of all, there's a physical space or a link. Now there's a link, but there's also without this physical space, we still might be a class, but it'd be hard to tell people where to go, if we didn't have a building. So there's the building and the Zoom link or whatever. Okay, then there's the people coming in, right? That's a very key part. That's another aggregate for this class. There's the material that we're studying. And without that material, it'd be just a bunch of people hanging out in a building waiting for a tornado to hit. With people on Zoom watching us, it would be meaningless. What else? There's like a time frame, right? A time and a day. Without a time and a day, it'd be, hey, there's this great class. They're going to talk about this, this, and this. And it's at this place. What day and what time? Everybody would show up at different days and times. It wouldn't make any sense. So those are like all the aggregates. Some of them are actual physical things, and some of them are not. But we know what they are. We know how to look on a calendar and find the day and the time and get in our car and come here. So all that to say, like when all those aggregates come together, we're in class, and then all those aggregates separate, and then they come back together, sometimes in a little bit different form. That's the kind of the life cycle of this class, fitting into a larger life cycle of the module. So what aggregates make up each of us to be able to hold the label of whatever your name is? So there's 5 aggregates. Many of you already know this. One is form. It's the building that you're in, the building that is your body, right? Form, but even in general, it's forms. Feeling, you like. I'll read them too. I'll read it out. So the second one is feeling. You feel you like something, you don't like something, that kind, just, gross feelings. The third one is perception. There's a lot more. We can go into all of these. I'm just kind of skimming over it. Perception, being able to discriminate between something. That's Linda. That's Lori. That being able to do that. Your perceptions of something, being able to discriminate between things. Formations, kind of like the whole ideas that are based on all of these things coming together to be able to formulate something. And then consciousness, gross consciousness, subtle consciousness, and very subtle consciousness. Very subtle consciousness is not something we're walking around noticing very much, but that's what arises at the time of death, at the final moment of death. So these are the things that are dissolving, along with elements that, it can get really, really technical, but I don't think it's necessary to get that technical. I'm just wanting to introduce you to what's dissolving when we go through this meditation. So that's why it's called the death dissolution state, so that various things are dissolving. And when I read through them, I remember asking Geshe-la, like, oh, but some of those things seem to be happening way earlier than the moment of death. That can be true. Like one of the signs of the form is, your body becomes thin and weak. Well, that is already happening to me. But, so it's a process. It doesn't mean it means, you're moving along on the conveyor belt, but it doesn't mean that you're in the moment of dying. And in the moment of dying, some of these things often get more intense. So just keep that in mind. Any thoughts or questions about the aggregates? All right, so Lori set me right up to launch into this topic. Yeah.
Is consciousness equal to the mind?
Oh, is consciousness equal to the mind? Well, tell me what you mean by the mind. I mean, in a nutshell, yes, but.
So I was here when Venerable Ravina gave her teachings, and she usually referred to the mind instead of consciousness. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where there is a difference between the two words, or we're going to consider them synonyms.
Yeah, let's channel Rabina. Certainly, both of those terms, gross consciousness and mind, there's so many different subcategories under that. And so for the purpose of this, we are dissolving this larger consciousness into subtle consciousness, into very subtle consciousness. So the mind and the gross consciousness has, in Tibetan Buddhism, I studied it for a while, there's so many different factors under mind. They piece it apart like we piece apart birds and flowers. Because I know Geshe-la always says, like, how come there's so many names for them? He's like, we just call that a flower. And he thinks it's hysterical that I said, "Oh, that's a black-eyed Susan." "Oh, Susan Potter?" I said, "No, not Susan Potter." So, so anyway, I was describing how, and he knows, I know all these bird names, he can't believe it. And I said, well, just like Tibetan Buddhists have taken the functions of the mind and dissected all these different parts of it, of awareness. So you can have eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and then subtle parts to each of those all fall under mind. And then they break them down into all these parts. And for the purpose of this exercise, the gross mind is dissolving into the subtle mind and then into the very subtle mind. So that, when consciousness and form take shape, that's a life that we can then label as that walking around on this earth and has a name. At the time of death, some of these aggregates dissolve, and what's left is a very subtle consciousness that then moves along in the stream of consciousness to the next life. And after this life, then it's what's called in Tibetan Buddhism the Bardo states. So, it's very interesting because I was reading, purgatory has the same amount of days that I think Tibetan Buddhists talk about for Bardo. I didn't realize that limbo is not synonymous with purgatory, that the early Christians designated limbo is where kind of that Bardo state when you're going to take, well, not a rebirth, but you're going to hell, basically. And purgatory is where you go hang out before you go to heaven. So yeah, I learned something new. Yeah, I learned a bunch of stuff, like early Catholics believed that there was a cave in County Donegal that was purgatory. And you went and got in the cave for a little while, and it was a tiny little cave, and you laid there for 24 hours, and then you came out and you were good. And then it changed. That was a long time ago, like 600 BC, Common Era. Okay, so everybody feel ready for this? Any thoughts or questions beforehand? I mean, yeah.
So I know that visualization of the clear light is part of the meditation, right?
Yeah.
Can you help me with what I have a hard time visualizing clear light because
Yeah.
then